We're gonna go over strength training for climbing, and we're gonna start right now. All right, so when we're thinking about climbing, let's look at something like free soloing, okay? So we actually have to think about the technical skill that goes into this sport. We have to think about the crazy mental endurance. We have to think about the planning that goes into it. And then we have to think about the physical aspect, okay? What's going into the grip work that we need to work on? What type of finger strength do we need to have? What type of lat strength do we need to have? Even down to the point, and I think that this is something that is very commonplace, is that a lot of people don't think about leg strength when they're talking about rock climbing or anything along those lines. They don't think about how the legs play a major role. They don't think about even how the ankle joint and ankle mobility plays a major role in the sport. And so we have to look at all those different qualities, all those different strength characteristics, and then build a system around that. So when we're thinking about strength training specific to climbing, we've got to lay out those strength characteristics and then understand under each characteristic, what can we do to improve our performance for overall climbing. That first key factor is going to be focus on relative strength. Okay, and so what is relative strength? If we can look at relative strength as straight up pound for pound strength, okay? So if you're in a weight class sport, let's say wrestling or boxing, weightlifting, these are all sports relegated to a weight class. So if you're a lighter individual, you will have higher relative strength, typically based off of research, okay? So if we're a rock climber, we need to focus on that pound for pound strength. And there's a couple of reasons why. That first reason is gonna be if we have too heavy of a body weight, we will lead to a larger rate of fatigue at a much faster pace. If that happens at a much faster pace, we won't be able to climb as long. The other big factor is that when we have really technical holds and we're in positions where maybe we're hanging on by 2 fingers or 3 fingers or 1 arm, there's going to be a need to weigh less because then our body can handle that. And on top of that, if we have a lighter body weight, but a large amount of muscle mass relative to our body weight, it's gonna be easier to be more explosive. It's gonna be easier to go from one hold to another if we have to jump across certain areas. And so we've gotta factor in what can improve relative strength. Typically, relative strength is going to be improved by doing reps of 1 to 4 reps, but also relative strength can be improved through doing isometric holds. So let's say we're doing a long hang off of a pull-up bar, or we're doing high reps of rope climb, or even high reps of pull-ups. Okay, we want to get to the point where we can bust out 30 to 35 pull-ups. We want to climb a fat rope 5, 6, 7 times in a row in a matter of 10 to 12 minutes. Those are all different ways that we can lead to greater levels of relative strength. Another big factor is optimizing that rate of coordination. Okay, so if we can coordinate at a faster pace and our body can adapt much quicker, that in turn will lead to a better improvement of rate of coordination. We'll become more neurally intelligent, and that's gonna improve our relative strength. We can do things like a power snatch or a power clean. I really like a power snatch for climbers because we would get into that overhead position, be very stable in that shoulder girdle, and that in turn will help carry over to any pulls that we need to hit. That second key characteristic is going to be strength endurance, okay? So if we're climbing the face of a mountain, right? We've gotta look at, it might take us 3, 4, 5 hours, depending on our difficulty level. If we're a speed climber, it might only take us 5, 10, 15 seconds, but if we do that over 10 to 15 sets, that's going to add up. That's going to take us longer than an hour. And so we need to have that strength endurance. So ideally, if we're in the realm of a 2-hour climb, we need to be able to put out a massive amount of power still at about an hour and a half into that climb, right? So if we can look at it and say, all right, we know what we're capable of doing from a technical perspective based off of our past history as a climber. If we can train our strength endurance by doing a little bit of cardio-based training, so let's say we do high-intensity interval-based training, we can work on an assault bike, we can do rowing, but also doing resistance-based training over a long period of time in conjunction with those long climbs, okay? So if we can figure out, all right, if we can do relative strength work and do that for about an hour to an hour and a half, that's gonna help us with that climbing performance. Obviously, we need to lay that out in a periodized system because we don't want to do a large amount of resistance-based training too close to a specific climb because that could have a negative impact on our overall technical performance. So if you guys need help with your programming, make sure that you go to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store, the Apple iOS Store, and you can pick up a periodized strength training program specific to climbing. And when you download Peak Strength, you're gonna get 7 free days of training, and you can cancel during those 7 free days at any time. But the worst thing that's gonna happen is you're gonna get 5 free workouts to begin that journey to attain peak strength. Now, let's get on to that next strength characteristic. And this is going to piggyback off of that strength endurance, okay? I wanna get something where I can focus on technical moves while I'm very fatigued. So fatigued technical work. Okay, we know there's a ton of technique involved with climbing. We know that this is gonna happen, okay? And we know that we're gonna have to do specific movement patterns when we're very fatigued. So I wanna look at the specific joints. If I have to have really specific dorsiflexion or really specific plantar flexion, I wanna hold an isometric position that's gonna be very similar to what I'm doing out on the rocks, okay? And that might mean I'm gonna be in a flex knee position as well, or I'm gonna be in an extended knee position, just digging my toes in there. So we need to strengthen our toes while doing this technical work inside of the gym. That could mean doing long duration PVC pipe walks. I would even recommend doing things like a Donkey Kong climb on the ropes or a fast speed climb on the ropes under fatigue at the end of a workout. Another unique thing that you can do. Let's say that you do 5 sets of 5 pull-ups, and then you have access to something like monkey bars. Well, you can be under fatigue from those 5 sets of 5 pull-ups and then do rapid climbs on the monkey bars and try to focus on hand position, trying to focus on grip, specific grip to wherever you're weak. Now you can build that technical aspect up over time while you're fatigued, and that's gonna lead to better climbing. Finally, the most important aspect that I would argue here is going to be grip work and dynamic trunk control work. These are gonna be sort of paired together, okay? So if we can understand different grips, we have to research and study the grips that are needed to become better climbers, and we have to train them inside of the gym. I also think that you should be focusing on eccentric action, concentric action, pronation and supination of your forearm, okay? All of those different regions have to be trained differently. So we can do explosive plate flips, let's say. We could do things like forearm roller over a span of 10 to 15 minutes. We can do isometric hangs on fat ropes. We can do isometric hangs while we're hanging on an actual pull-up bar and see how long that we can go. Any way that we can use improvement in our grip is going to lead to better performance in our climbing. While we're doing that, we need to be observing and training dynamic trunk control movements. That means holding flexion positions inside of our hip, achieving a hip lock potentially for a long period of time. Getting into a pull-up position while holding our knees at 90 degrees is a great way to train both the grip and that trunk work so that we have that dynamic trunk control. Again, I do believe that using something like a power snatch or an overhead squat or even a full snatch with an open grip is gonna help train our grip. It's gonna help improve our relative strength. It's gonna help with our dynamic trunk control, and it's gonna help us have that strength endurance in technical position. So we need to focus on all of our different strength characteristics if we want to become a better climber. It's an extremely challenging sport. It's a dangerous sport, but if you understand the techniques involved and you understand the physical aspects that you need to have and you understand the mental aspects that you need to have, you can be successful in the world of climbing. Again, if you need help with your programming, head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store, the Apple iOS Store. You can pick up Peak Strength today because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.